Season's greetings, everyone, and welcome to our December 2025 Idea Jam. My name is Natasha Baines, and I will be your chair for this evening. On behalf of the Canadian Network for Imagination and Creativity, or CNIC for short, my fellow friends in creativity and members of CNIC that are with us this evening are scattered around your Zoom screen. If you could give us a wave. Oh, good. There we go. Thank you. As always, it's a great pleasure to be back in this hour-long gathering place in our video conferencing world with you. This is our place to share with you different topics, discussions, and ideas from our hosts and guests, and then to have the open discussions that flow with you afterwards. Our goal here at CNIC is to see our creativity and imagination from different angles that we see life from, recognize the different backgrounds we come from, and to create and foster open, forward thinking and dialogue. It's our hope that through our discussions that we have at each event that we can expand our minds into new directions, collaborate through idea sharing, create partnerships in our differences, in our sameness and our beliefs, and then carry forward those concepts and discussions out into our worlds and spheres of influence. We want to find and foster our inner and outer creativity through the exploration of our imaginations and ideas, and do this together in our learning and listening space. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that as a resident of Clarence, Rockland, Ontario, which sits just outside of the east end of the city of Ottawa, that I'm chairing our meeting on the traditional unceded land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. I'm thankful for this opportunity to be able to do so this evening. As we remember the wrongs of the past, we stand today in solidarity and look to tomorrow for a brighter future. We want you to reflect and participate in the way that you feel most comfortable with and make this idea space your own. Our Idea Jam is our space to learn, explore, and share. We want to hear your ideas through conversations. This is a place where talking your ideas out is what it's all about. Your thoughts, your inklings, and your ideas help keep our space moving forward, so this is your time to shine. Our format is very simple. Once our host got our discussion for the evening, we'll open the floor to you for our chats and conversations to begin and see where the journey will lead us during our time together. Nothing is a bad idea. Every discussion point helps move the idea along. Please take this opportunity to explore and share as your insights may spark and light someone's creativity fire. Zoom is our platform of choice for this discussion. It allows you to participate in many different ways. It has the built-in controls that allow you to raise your hand so that we can see when you wish to join the conversation. You can add things to the chat function, which helps keep the ideas and thoughts flowing, and you can share your emotions with the little emotion reactions as well. For tonight's jam, we are going to be led by Alexis Milligan, who we have not seen for a while, so it's great to have her back. And we will be talking about the theater of medicine. So we're happy to have Alexis back with us. So without further ado, I will hand it over to you.
Oh, hey. Oh, it's nice to see some familiar faces. I realize how important these idea jams were during COVID. And I'm suddenly having a lot of nostalgia for seeing some of you here, especially, of our discussions and starting these idea jams. So my name is Alexis Milligan, as I said, and I'm sitting here in Waverley or Bunamaquattee, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. And I I've been a past member of the Scenic group, so I was part of the sort of not quite original, but brought on early on, and to help shape. And during COVID, it was really exciting to think about how we could find a way of gathering and make this kind of a monthly event for us. And I'm so thrilled to see it continuing with such a great presence of people, that these conversations are still going. So I sat on the Canadian Network Steering Committee for a number of years, and also the Atlantic Centre for Creativity, which is their sister organization, where I have hosted the Finding Creativity podcast. So if you haven't heard, we do have 2 seasons of that podcast that we produced, which was very exciting. It was a lot of fun. That was a great kind of project to do. And I was asked to kind of jump in a bit last minute. They needed someone to fill in, and Mary reached out. I hadn't heard from her in ages, so we got to connect. And kind of catch up a little bit on the work that I've been doing. One of the reasons why I had to step back from the steering committee, because my job was exploding in a really positive way. And it's been continuing to do so, not without its bumps, which we can talk about, not without its challenges for sure. Some days it just feels like I'm spinning my wheels and it's not moving forward. Steve, the name of the podcast is Finding Creativity. So you can find that on anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Yeah, there's 2 full seasons there. And I so the thing that happened is during all of this, and COVID, is I got my master's, and it's been putting my master's to work since then in work that I have been doing for a long time. So I thought what I would do is start a little bit at the beginning of the journey and bring you up to speed about program called the Theater of Medicine. The Theater of Medicine is an accredited program. We are an accredited continuing professional development program. We are accredited through the University of Toronto, and it is a program that I co-created with Dr. Glenn Bandiera, who is the Executive Director of Standards and Assessments at the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons. And so it was in my capacity at the Shaw Festival. So I am a movement director. I'll get to that in a second. At the Shaw Festival, that's work I do as an artist. But I also work in the Department of Outreach and Community Engagement. And this was a project that basically took the work I'd been doing over the past 13 years, the work of my master's, and co-created this with Glenn to be able to present this Theater of Medicine program. So I will share with you all the details of that program, but just to give you a bit of background, it is an accredited continuing professional development program that we developed together. So I'm going to take us back to 2013. And it was about 2012, 2013. And now I have been up to this point working as a professional dancer and transitioned into being a professional actor. I toured the world with Mermaid Theatre of Nova Scotia. It's so nice, Elizabeth. I think you said you're sitting in Antigonish. I just did a show there last summer. So I'm happy to see that there's some Antigonish love here in Nova Scotia. But so I've been, yeah, Kathy, I'm going to get to that. So I have been working as a dancer. I trained as a classical theater performer, and then I fell into the world of puppetry. So I toured that's right, Elizabeth, we did. Oh, that's so great. Now I'm putting the pieces together. Okay. So what I looked at puppetry. I was traveling the world. I was getting to do all sorts of interesting and magnificent things, and getting further and further into this world of how puppets have such a way of getting into the heart of empathy, of feeling. It's incredible that an inanimate object can become so alive that you begin to care for it. And I was really struck by this, and I was teaching a lot of puppetry workshops everywhere we toured. We toured internationally all over the world. And I really felt that my work as a dancer and my work as a theater artist was really bringing this kind of question together. And my whole career just seemed to really bring this dance, theater, puppetry, physical theater, and my curiosity began to deepen about the real effect it has on audiences and how we relate to each other, how we relate to performance. And I started to look at my work as a creator, as a theater maker, not just in the roles in the plays that I was doing and in my own practice as a performer, even something with, say, Shakespeare text or classical text, but I was also really curious about producing and creating theater in a way that would really activate an audience. Like, how could we take an audience that's used to just kind of being a bit shouted at and watching people doing a lot of crying and slamming of tables and doors and a lot of that emoting on the stage, which actually really sort of
good
sits us
heartfelt
in a
movie.
passive possession. Like, we really kind of lean back as opposed to active. And that was what I was finding when I watched puppetry. I was like, there's a real shift It really activates an audience when an inanimate object comes to life in a way that sometimes we struggle with in plays and in theater and in performance. Sometimes it can be just a lot. So you end up kind of going, oh, very nice. That was good acting, as opposed to I'm actually a participant in this. My imagination is participating and filling in the gaps and what's going on. So I took this as an impulse to begin creating pieces of theater that I really felt had the power to say something, to do something, to activate an audience. And I don't mean by having like a message or something that they needed to be, told or sort of screamed in your face. It wasn't that. It was really looking at every gesture, every breath, every beat means something. It says something. So really challenging ourselves to say, well, what are you saying? If a standing body alone in space is already saying something, like what are we saying? Like we all sit here right now. If I just said to you, freeze, like a statue, right? If you just freeze, like the shape of our bodies is saying something. Even in these squares, we're engaging and watching each other and putting these pieces together, trying to figure each other out. And so I kind of looked at that and went, oh, that's interesting. Like that's kind of comic books and graphic novels. And there's like this way that we kind of participate when we engage with visual art. But that's kind of the landscape of the theater. That's how we perceive a proscenium stage. That's its frame. It's not a painting, but it is. It's perspective. So I took that as an impulse to partner with a young artist, and this was many, many years ago. Her name was Katie Dorian, and she was building a piece of theater. She was curious. She approached me and she sort of said, I've got my grandfather's journal, and he has Alzheimer's and dementia, and we're losing our family stories. Her grandmother had passed away. Every time her grandfather told a story, the version would be different. This person was there, this person wasn't there. It was this date, it wasn't that, was that date. It was this, it was there, it was that, And we sort of investigated that as a question of, if you forget who you are, who do you become? Who is there? Who remains? Because somebody remains, but who is that? And we looked at memory as the core hypothesis for this piece. And we set up a memory museum where we had things you could taste and smell and touch and listen to, and you could write a little post-it if anything got triggered. Like we had little things of Jello, orange Jello, and we had little sounds that and smells, and you could write your memory and post it up on the set. And so with our set ended up being full of these yellow post-its. And then as the show went on, of course, some of them would become a bit unsticky, and you'd have these kind of falling memories happening in the background of the show. Katie introduced herself to every single person who came in the room and said goodbye to them at the end. Her task was to remember their names, every single audience member who came in. We had sections where we retold the same story, but every time we cut out a little bit more. So you were just left with sort of an embodied version of a silent piece, but because we layered it, you remembered it as the audience. And we really tackled this idea of like, how much is the audience actually really participating? And of course, the answer is a lot. And when we did that, a woman from the Dalhousie School of Nursing came to see it. And she was very, very moved by this piece. And she approached me and said, I have a question. Would you come to a meeting of a research group that I have gathered to look at research around death and dying and palliative care, hospice versus hospital care, and how we could address the stigmas and stereotypes around death and dying. Basically taking this idea of what we were doing with the show was called How Often Do I Dream? And so how do we take the ideas, the principles of How Often Do I Dream? Could we transfer those principles in the way that we built that show and build it using the research? And these were, we had interviews with a number of different participants and their families that were in looking at, again, what was their own perception of their dying process, both from the terminal cancer patient and also their families. And so I joined them. I had a fantastic meeting. It was 12 researchers. This was fully funded by the Canadian Cancer Society. And as we were going around the circle, kind of introducing ourselves and tell you we're all talking about the project, I'm really just there kind of getting to know people. I keep hearing, and Alexis is here to develop an arts-based knowledge to action translation tool. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a lot of words. Okay, let's go to, and then again, yes, 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 she's here to develop an arts-based knowledge to action translation tool. And I just sat there like feeling absolutely idiotic. Like, what is, I don't know what that is. I don't know that I'm supposed to be here because I don't know where do I even begin with that? And it dawned on me by about the third or fourth time, oh, you mean make a play? Oh, I see. I'm here to make a play, out of the transcripts from the interviews. Okay, that I get. And I suddenly realized, like, I really was in that environment where I couldn't say that. I mean, they wanted me to say it. It wasn't that they banned it, but in saying it, the glaze that came over people's faces, oh, you're doing a play. And we had a considerable sum of money given to this project, but nowhere would it have said, create a piece of theater, make a play, actors, stage, nothing. Because that like distance would come across people's faces. And I just had to take that a little bit on board. I got very curious. And I said, this is about 2012, 2013. I started to hear more and do more reading and my own research on science communication and science communicators and people who are literally translating research so the general public can absorb it and be able to use it because there's some really good information out there. And this was at the time where I was also invited to participate and MC an arts and science symposium in Frankfurt. We had actually one at Potsdam University in 2014, and then I went back to Frankfurt in 2016. And it was an arts and science symposium. Again, I was kind of asked to go and host, to help produce, to stage manage, also to perform. And they were bringing together leading scientists, they were neuroscientists, on looking at chronic pain, perceptions of pain, memory of pain, emotional attachment, really looking at what's happening inside the brain when we encounter these different things as attributed to health, to trauma, to management, to perceptions. And then alongside the science conference, there was this arts symposium. So we had artists from all over the world that we came together and we created this piece together. And it was there that I started to really encounter this notion of how the brain connects to memory about our experiences, especially when we're going through something as attributed to our health, like a health crisis, or we're inside of the medical system. I was also reading a lot of Oliver Sacks and really getting involved in his work, which again, he's been, his work was really focused on transferring the patient history into patient story. And this was also the emergence of storytelling in medicine, storytelling in science. And I feel like I kind of hit this wave of serendipity where all these things were like oscillating around and kind of kept crossing my path. And it was during this palliative care project, we called it the Peace Project, palliative education through art, communication, and engagement, because it isn't a medical project if it doesn't have an acronym. So the Peace Project, it was during our rehearsals and the creation for that piece that Dr. Brenda Sabo, who's the woman who brought me on in the first place, was watching rehearsals and she said, could you come and work with my nursing students? Because I'm watching you work with the actors on how to like stand and use their voices and how they're translating some of the the scenarios that the transcripts had like what we were using as text, and how we were shaping the scenes. And she said, I think my nursing students really need this. I said, sure, I'll come in and do a workshop. So I got asked to join a workshop with a professor, a separate class than hers, but same cohort of students. And she brought me in, and it was a lecture, a 2-hour lecture on toxic workplace for healthcare providers. And there was this social and emotional learning wheel, the Kazel wheel, that was up on the board. And it was all about like self-awareness and like active listening and like all these things that were around. And so between that and between kind of what Brenda had asked me to do, this was a lecture, PowerPoint presentation. All the students are like this on their laptops. I did the unthinkable and asked them all to stand up and move their desks to the sides of the room so we could stand in a circle. That blew their mind. And then we all stood in a circle, and to this day, I still do this exercise. All I did was ask them to stand in a circle so they could see everyone. Just be able to see. You can't kind of hide and make it a shitty circle. You have to make it a real circle. And I said, just look across the circle to someone, make a connection with that person, and just walk towards them. We're just going to go one at a time. And then when I walk towards you, it's your turn. You find someone, and I'll just take your place in the circle. We'll just do these little walking threads, super easy. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. It was so hard for them. And I was shocked. And I sort of suddenly started to realize how much I take for granted in my work as a performer, how much of my performance self I actually carry in my day. I do carry my body. I do use my voice. I do understand perceptions, narratives, how I relate to people. And so I stopped them. I sort of said, why is this so hard? And the thing that came up was, it's just so intimate. So one of these students said, it's just so intimate. And I had to look at them and say, yeah, and so is putting a needle in someone's arm. And though no one had even suggested this as an idea, that these two things are actually very connected. How you connect with someone and how you help them. I mean, we're not even talking about a catheter. We're talking about just taking your pulse is an intimate act. And so I started to kind of put these pieces together. The other one that I heard was, you really have to rise to the occasion. It's hard. I have to rise. I have to be more of myself to make a connection that I feel I can give someone. And the act of rising to the occasion to be there for someone else, again, never cross paths, never was a part of their education. And these nurses, this was April, they were graduating in May, and they were out into the world. So looping this into, again, this was in the same year I did my first art science symposium at Potsdam University with all the neuroscientists, and I'm suddenly getting like, it's hitting me on all these levels. I was like, there is a solid lateral connection between the performing arts, communication, education in actually how we learn and process and absorb information, and neuroscience. And that's what I did my master's in. So I got obsessed with this. I got absolutely, I saw the gap. I knew the skills that I have as a performer, as a theater artist, a teacher, someone who workshops does this work all the time. And I was shocked that nowhere in any of their education had they ever been encouraged to go beyond the technical execution, which is critical. They need to know how to suture. You need to know how to put that needle in so it doesn't hurt. Like, to find that vein, these are things we need them to know how to do exceptionally well. They have hearts in their hands. But the idea that compassion and care, and more importantly, which is where the theater arts and all arts lie, is in human connection. I have skills and I have activities and exercises that I know you can train in to help improve these skills. Now, what I am saying is not new. I am not the first performing theater artist, any artist screaming into the wind going, we can make the world a better place. We know this as artists. This is not new. Theater in medicine, art in medicine, liberal arts, humanities in medicine, none of this is new. These are not new arguments, which I will make a point about as I wrap this up. But that first workshop started me on this path where they kept asking me back. I got asked into other classes. I got asked, and it started this ball rolling where I went, okay, I have to start to shape this to really get to where I think I could develop, because you don't get more than an hour to 90 minutes once a year in this work, period. They don't get any of it. To fight for 1 hour or a 90-minute workshop. And again, I'm not alone in this, just trying to get through the door to get some kind of communications training. It is a fight, getting better, but it's still a fight. That 90 minutes, I presented my version of this workshop, which the technique I called, which is what I used with my actors creating the pieces of theater. It's called speaking in silence. And it's really learning what you say before you say anything is the foundation of that. And as I did my master's and as I went through this study, I realized it's actually more than that. Speaking in silence is its own portion of something much bigger. And that much bigger concept is whole person communication. Because I realized with what speaking in silence does is it does give you that level of awareness of your physical, not just nonverbal technique, but your actual way of shifting the air in the room. That kind of power that we have, and then reading other people. I didn't take enough time, and this is where the shift happened for me, when I started to really look at my own work as an actor through my voice and was doing much more voice work. And I realized the voice does the same thing as, like, we are hardwired for vocal, how we understand the human voice, how we perceive ourselves, all of those things. And then layered on top of that is story. And so we have this understanding, this perception. We are inventing and creating stories all the time. It's how we survive in this world, is we need to make assumptions. We have our biases for a reason. It's a survival reason. My experiences have led me up to know that this is what's going to happen. The problem with that is that we get pigeonholed, we get stereotypes, we get stigmas, we get stuck. So it's only a matter of saying, I need to have activities and I need to break this idea of whole person communication down, where I'm going to look at 3 things in the language of the nursing practice: authentic presence, anything to do with presence, the active listening, and not just active listening like I'm being a good active listener, like all of you are being amazing active listeners right now. It's actually, how do you activate the listening in others when you're the one who has a lot of information you have to transmit? And the third is narrative and story. So these 3 things, these critical 3 things, is what I have developed into whole person communication. And that's what I really focused my master's on, was looking at those 3 in depth. What does it mean? We use these words all the time. They're up on that CASA wheel. All the kids, the students are there, the learners are there, and they're like, be more empathetic. Active listening, you need to be an active listener. But nowhere do they get to actually do an exercise where they have to listen. Like, just, something simple, something very simple. In the workshop that I do, it's a brilliant drama game. I'm sure all the drama teachers here know it. It's called Count to 10. And you never heard tell of an exercise that could break down how you listen and how you work as a group, then Count to 10. And so looking at bodies in space, their impact, how we perceive those bodies, the stories we put on them. So this is where I took this workshop, did this in-depth study. My lit review was insane. And that is what I have been developing and have now joined forces with the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons. And the Shaw Festival is the home of this. It's a weekend workshop. It's an intensive Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It tends to be the last weekend in September. We also offer half and full day versions. But the Shaw Festival is the home for this program because we truly see ourselves as a center for human connection. That is what we are as theater makers. We need to have that relationship with our patrons, and our patrons need to have this relationship to each other for the health of our society. And we really see ourselves as a huge public service. We provide a public service by being artists. And the work that we do at the Shaw Festival in our theater, in our productions, is all about making and maintaining those human connections, that we can have this shared experience in the theater. We can laugh, we can cry, we can gasp, we can tap our toes, we can come out buzzing, we can come out disagreeing. We don't have to like the same thing. We could just say, oh, it was terrible, oh, it was amazing, and have a great conversation about it and still be able to go out and have beers after, right? So it made sense for us to land this there. I work there as a movement director, and Glenn is on the board, and the artistic director sort of said, come on, you guys. The other reason why Glenn was so critical about developing this program is he has been the force behind the whole new CanMEDS framework. So every doctor who is a member of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons must abide by the CanMEDS framework, the Canadian Medical Association. This is the CanMEDS framework. And this is things like, where do you see yourself? Communicator, leadership, scholar, all of these things. It's a whole framework. You can look it up online. And their big push right now is quality improvement. We call it QI for short. Like I said, we have acronyms for days in the medical world. So we hit all of the quality improvement targets. We have a program with the whole person communication workshop, and we also run one in applied improvisation where we are looking at the transferable skills and tools found in the performing arts, and that there are key observations that you can experience when you go to see a play. You actually can have an activation of your imagination that you can start to see perspective. You can see different perspectives from different people, their stories, the performers, the way they relate to each other, the way they relate to the audience, as it goes on and on. And the driving force, again, that continually comes up for me and why I keep doing this is we now have the research. We've got the hard numbers. We've got the neuroscience that is proving every single step along the way that improvements of quality of care lead directly to improvements of patient outcome, including survival rates and overall physician well-being. We have quantitative numbers now. These are not just anecdotal that made me feel good. There's a study that came out in 2018 that looked at a cohort of almost 1,200 people. Half of them had access to a nurse practitioner where they could report their symptoms and what was going on in between their chemo treatments. These are all cancer patients. Half of them had the nurse practitioner they could call in between their 2 weeks. The other half didn't. They also tracked in the half that did how many people used it. So how many people did make the call? And not everybody did. It was only about 30 or 40% actually used the call to the nurse. They were charting the risk, like literally tracking over a long period of time, their patient overall outcome, improvements, including survival rate. If the FDA had these percentages tracking on the graph that they were suggesting, the drug would be approved immediately. So now we actually have a course of due diligence in terms of what and how our medical education system, what are we teaching? How are we teaching it? How are these students engaging with it? How can we also connect with more senior physicians, surgeons, nurses, health providers, any kind of HCP? There you go, healthcare provider. So any kind of HCP. This is critical work and it benefits them. So we do reduce burnout because you're not getting shouted at or feeling like a failure all the time because you do have the tools. So something that literally started with an idea has journeyed me all the way through to this place where we actually are part of a global movement. I will tell you, this is a big, big push right now globally. And what I will end with is to reiterate that none of this is new. None of it. And the reason I say this is because during my master's, which I recently refound so I could quote it for a keynote that I did at U of T, there's a brilliant special article from the Canadian Medical Journal, and it's called The Patient as a Person from 1934. So I feel my job and the work that I'm doing right now is to help us get off the hamster wheel because we're spinning our wheels. Patient-centered care, person-centered care, shared decision-making, these are all hot catchphrases in the universe of medical practice right now. Patients want to be part of their decision-making. Patients want to feel like they're a person and they're not the actual problem. They want to be seen as this person. They want to be seen and heard and listened to and active in these decisions. And that's exactly what this article was highlighting in 1934. So that is where I will end my presentation because I know that we like to continue on a little bit, but that's the kind of sum of the work that I've been doing. And I know there's been lots of active chat. So I am ready to answer all the questions in the world. And thank you for this, the opportunity to share the work that we're doing. Okay, I'm going to go through these questions. Should I start there? And oh yes, Elizabeth, that's so great. Finding creativity, art, dementia, offset, art and music, absolutely. Art, music therapies. Social prescribing is the big thing right now. I'm working with a group in Calgary at the Mount Royal Conservatory. They are music. They're a music conservatory. They're attached to Mount Royal University. And also the Rosa Foundation, which is also in Calgary. We're literally looking at trying to create a database where you could put in whatever your world of symptoms are, because doctors are having to prescribe art, dance, going to galleries, going to symphonies. This is a very real thing right now, is to socially prescribe. So we want to create a database where you could look up, hey, you know what? I've got this going on in my life. I've got limited mobility, but I need to be doing this kind of thing. And what's in my region? What's in my area? And then all of a sudden you could actually see what's going on in a nice big calendar and make some decisions about where you want to go. So yes, the art and music, dementia, movement, and visual art, clay, tactile work, all of that. How might theater help the audience understand the difficulties a person with dementia undergoes? Oh, I think there are so many plays, but there's a lot of really great forum theater or verbatim theater that's happening right now, which is a really cool concept of developing theater based on an individual's personal story. So you would take that personal story, you would share that with a cohort, say, of residents, medical residents, or medical students, and they would be able to see how that scenario plays out, but then the actors could redo it based on feedback that those doctors give to them, and they could make those changes and modifications, basically redirect the scene, and then do that play again. And I also think, yes, the caregivers are equally a part of this health conversation. And so how we look at that need is that they're part and parcel to the conversation as well. Absolutely. Lindsay, I'll go to you and then we'll head to the chat for more questions.
Okay, thanks. I just find your work very exciting. Um, and also a little triggering because I've had my brother's been in the health care he's had health problems in the
Mm,
last few years
yeah.
and most recently it's been a long haul in the hospital. And I love this and okay, so a couple things. I
Mm,
love this idea of bringing that awareness to how we enter a room, healthcare
yeah.
worker, just knowing about that their workday, you cross a threshold into a patient's room, and it makes a big difference how you do that. And also I work as a learning strategist, and I have
Mm,
some students in the nursing program, and it's very difficult to learn in school and then go into a field where it's not been learned. What they're learning has
yeah.
not been learned
No.
in the
No.
field, right? We see
Yeah.
that in
Yeah.
education as well,
Yeah.
with teachers. So I love it that you're sandwiching the strategies there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Something that I really noticed to
Mm,
add to this conversation
yeah.
is when my brother's health was affecting his emotional mood, um, and so apathy and depression in particular, the care was was not there. Like I walked into
Mm,
his room
mm,
on a usual day, and the curtains were drawn, and he was lying flat and had been there all day, and it was 3 in the afternoon.
mm,
And I was shocked um, that there was no care for this symptom
mm,
that was getting progressively worse and had gotten to that point, right?
yeah.
Uh, and so I had to, go, advocate and get him
Mm-hmm.
some help for his mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he has epilepsy, and that worked, but apathy is a very difficult thing, and how we approach a person with apathy makes all the difference. And
Mm-hmm.
I imagine like in theater it would be just it's one of the most difficult things, but
Mm-hmm.
because you can't make someone have intrinsic motivation. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
pe healthcare providers don't address it. And he was not getting any physical therapy
Wow.
because they all walked in and said, do you want to do your walking? So the answer is going to be no
Of
for
course it is.
anyone. Yeah.
Anybody. Yeah, absolutely. But again, that's just this is how they've been trained, and this is also the behavior they see by the senior, nurses or doctors on the floor that they're supposed to be working under. Is that this is also learned behavior, that there isn't an encouragement to kind of go beyond that, or if they do try, they're often reprimanded for it because it's not according to the system. So there's
And it all,
also all the systemic stuff that they're not allowed to. Like you're not allowed to sit next to someone and put your arm around them. And yet some people would say that that's essential to someone who might need that in that moment. But they're
yeah.
not allowed and they can get reprimanded and removed. Like it's, you know.
Yeah, and also the whole idea that you're talking about with collaboration,
Mm,
and theater being a collaborative, it being more obvious, right? That it's
mm, mm,
collaboration. Well, I think a lot of patients don't even recognize that they are collaborating, and the healthcare workers are providing, but no, they're collaborating. And so if they do know they're collaborating and they say, "Do you want?" They think
mm-hmm.
that's empowering the patient, but they haven't actually recognized the higher goal is it's
Yeah.
time to walk.
You need to walk. We have to get you walking.
We're walking
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and we'll
Yeah.
do it together. Yeah.
So
And
collaboration
yeah,
looks
yeah,
different. Yeah.
100%.
Anyway.
Yep. Absolutely. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Steve.
I can't thank you enough. I was very moved by your passion and the content. And I want to pose the question correctly to give you the
Mm-hmm.
time to answer it, hopefully. What you said about the nurses, the touching, the holding, all of that's I think that's going to take years to change. But through
Mm-hmm.
your bringing this to light, somebody might dare to take the chance to hold somebody who's dying.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, how, what do you have in your toolkit that could bring to the attention of caregivers
Mm-hmm.
to assist the patient? And I've witnessed grandchildren taking better care of the grandparent than their child
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because there's so much history and there's that automatic reaction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So do you have something that could be brought to the attention of the caregiver?
Yes, all of this applies to everybody. And I am able, had the great fortune of running this workshop for such a huge range of individuals and groups. From the Royal Canadian Navy, I have done this workshop with. I have done this work with our senior volunteers at the Shaw Festival. I have done this work with educators, all the way from early child education to post-secondary education. Um, it's applicable to anyone in that moment of giving ourselves time. There's a couple of the ideas that I embed in this workshop is how to be on receive as much as transmit, and that's a big thing. So how do you actually be on receive when we tend to be trying to solve, to fix, to placate, to calm, to do all those things, we reassure. We tend to be on a lot of transmit, and sometimes we just need to be on receive. And you can be actually, this is where the deep performance work, when you get to that level of skill in theater, you can do both at the same time. I can be very aware, and that is actually how we are as humans. We're on receive as much as we are on transmit. The other is impact versus intention, because those are two very different things. We might have the intention to do X, Y, and Z, but the impact on the person might be completely not what your intention was. And that's where we get, well, I was just trying to help. Yeah, but you actually were shouting at me. Like it felt like you were shouting. So how do we navigate that, those areas of learning how we are actually with each other and how we can be with each other, and to also in that work know where our limitations are, where do we hit capacity, and actually say, I am actually feeling quite short-tempered at the moment. I'm going to go get a cup of tea and I'll be back in 5 minutes, right? But to be able to do that, and especially in the medical system, there's no time for doctors to do that. They don't have time to pee. They don't have time to eat. They don't have time to get a drink of water. They don't have time. So I was at the nursing school at UNB St. John, and I was doing, and this one nurse just sort of said to me, oh, so you're saying, because I do this, one of these exercises called the 5 points, which is just like a super quick, like check-in. Like you can just go through these 5 points, see where you're at, get your subconscious comes to the conscious. How are you, where are you at, where are you at in this moment? And he just sort of looked at me and went, oh, like I could actually do that while I'm changing my gloves and just give myself a reset. And I was like, yes, you can. That's great. And I'm going to make that a point of saying that in every single one of my workshops right now, is that is an option available to you, that you could actually take. You don't have time. They don't have time. Their system is broken. And what we can do is help them find the time inside of the work that they're doing where they could make those choices. They're not going to make them every day. They're not going to be perfect every day, but it does allow for that. And I think that this would directly apply to caregivers, 100%. because they have to have that ability to have that personal check-in with where they are. Again, bringing the subconscious to the conscious. And that's not easy. The thing about health that we also can't forget, we're not having pina coladas on the beach together, right? That's not how we're meeting each other in this. We are meeting each other in piles of pain and frustration and anger and sorrow and grief. We are not, and they are fatigued and stressed and feeling like they're not providing. I mean, it's just all the things, all the reasons why they went into medicine, right? So, but we have to see the humanity in that, and we have to know that we are coexisting in this. And then how do we use these tools, technical tools, this education, the super brain that they have, because they did med school, so there's got to be something going on up there, that they can now apply this, right? And I think that's the big thing, is that that would directly apply. A workshop for caregivers and people who need this kind of support, absolutely could do something like that and transfer that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you
Absolutely.
very much. You'll
Yep.
give us your contact information somewhere
Oh,
else,
yes.
please.
Yes, I will. And what are some other activities we could do to build these capacities into our groups, classes, families? Yeah, it is. It's just that, Fred. It's looking for how you can find ways. Like, one of the things I talk about is how when they walk into a room, how do they orient themselves in relationship to their patient? We stand in a circle. Why a circle? There's so much research on the power of circles and storytelling circles and restorative justice and all the things. All of that research is there. But can you walk into the room with your whole team of people? Can you not stand behind the shoulder of the person? Like, can you actually try to help shape what could be a circle where the patient is part of that circle? Like, how you orient your desk. And I still get some of the doctors that I've worked with just going, yep, just went into my new office, totally rearranged it, thanks. Because it was like, they're here and they've got their back and they've got the chair, and they just went in and went, no, I can actually change. That's something I can control. I can move the furniture in my office, or I can move my chair around this tiny little cubicle in the curtains, but I could maneuver myself so it feels I could sit down to a person who is on a bed as opposed to towering above them, right? Just little things like that, little tricks of literally staging. You're staging. This is how we do blocking in theater. We got to make sure we're facing out a bit so that everybody can see us, right? Again, things I've totally took for granted. Why couldn't they do the walking circle? Because it's so vulnerable. They have to shut off. They are encouraged to shut off, right? These parts of themselves, because personal connection can hurt, and it can actually cause the healthcare provider a lot of damage, right? It can cause their own traumas when they get particularly close to a patient. But again, we have that in theater. We need to put a mask on. We need to know what it's like to perform our characters. So there is a performance, a high top level of elite athleticism in high performance, high endurance performance. And it's just making the shift that doctors can do that and not have it be a wall of disconnect. And how many introverts head into drama? Oh, well, see, this is the thing. This is my whole thing about admissions, is admissions into med school. They're not looking for communicators. They don't base it off of an interview. I even had a recent medical resident participate in our weekend who was a ballet dancer. And she, at the end of her interview, they were like, so do you have any questions for us? She's like, well, I just thought you'd be interested that I was a professional ballet dancer. And they were not. They were not interested in her sharing her story, that she was a professional dancer. And you think about, okay, let's just think about that level of professional dancer. Okay, what qualities? It's not just about how straight their legs are and how many turns they do. That's physical endurance. Check. That is teamwork, understanding my body in space in relation to other bodies, my professionalism, my punctuality, my rigor. I mean, you go through the qualities of a professional dancer, and they weren't interested. And it wasn't until she came to our workshop, she went, I just didn't know I could bring any of myself as a professional dancer. I just was told to shut it off. And you just go, well, that's not going to serve anybody, because as a dancer, you're going to understand a whole lot about the physical landscape of that room you walk into better than anybody else, because that's been your whole learning since you were a child. So, and again, that rigor and that level of discipline. They bring introverts, they bring the science brains, they bring the people who are maths and science and engineering and their top marks. These are not very socially active human beings, and then we demand them to be social, right? And without giving them the tools, we have an expectation. So I have a ton, and now it's even worse given the social isolation of the last 5 years, and that not just being COVID but technology. Is I have students who cannot speak. They just can't in a public space. And I am literally now doing an exercise with them on how to introduce themselves and say their name so we can hear them. And it's hard for them. They get shy, they get embarrassed, they pull back. But they also then take ownership when you do it enough times. This is the beautiful thing about art. You repeat it, you get better at it, and then it becomes second nature. So you practice saying your name, you get better at it. It's going to build confidence. It's going to build an aspect of your personality. So they just need a chance to practice, but it is in a hidden curriculum. It is not part of the mainstream. I just did this workshop with the CMPA, another acronym, the Canadian Medical Protective Association. I came on as a consultant for them. 1 3-hour workshop in non-technical skills is all the junior residents get in their year. 1 3-hour workshop. And I had to fight to get the PowerPoint presentations down from 100 to 40. Like, what are we going to learn from a PowerPoint presentation? Not much. You have to get up and do it. You have to practice it. It has to be in you, and you have to really get a sense of how you do this, not somebody else doing it, you. And that's the other thing. Where can you read my research? There's tons of research out there. You can Google Scholar, patient-centered approach, person-centered practice, shared decision-making, seeing the patient as a person. You can go all over the gamut. There's so much of this stuff that's just anything comes up in the Guardian all the time. Comes up in CBC, all of these. The Defy Dementia actually came to the Shaw Festival. We just hosted them, and we're actually embarking on a SSHRC grant with them in the new year, which is very exciting. Anything else? I'm trying to look for any of these other questions. Art and science and noticing. Yeah.
I don't want to do this, but we're at 8:03.
We're at time. It's great.
And there is one question. Kath,
I
think has been.
Yes, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Yes.
I don't want to quickly answer, but.
Yep.
Hi. I know time is up, so now I'm on the spot here. What I was going to say, Alex, is I'm in Hansport, just down the road from Mermaid Theatre. So hi. And we could actually even meet. That would be great. I wanted to thank you so much, and maybe this is a good ending here, is because I work in nutrition and dietetics. I've been a dietitian for 40 plus years. My research has been in meanings of eating, meanings of feeding, and when people live with serious illness and end of life and so on. And what a hard slog it has been for any of things related to arts informed work, and so I just want to thank you, because my background in dance and theater and in music and that just, when I was young, that went put over there, because now I'm studying science, right?
Yes.
And the other thing I wanted to share with you is you mentioned an article from 1936, I think. When I was doing my doctorate, I found all these amazing articles in the American Journal of the American Dietetic Association, because we didn't have a Canadian one at the time, that were about what you just said, like communication. I can't even think of them, but they were all about connecting with another human who you don't know, and you're meeting them at a really bad time in their life, and how to approach that, all the things you just talked about.
Yes.
And then boom, 1955 gone. And I asked my doctoral supervisor, like, why would that happen? He's like, because that's the time when returning forces personnel had finished their degrees and started publishing. And then that big of biochemical science, biological sciences, all of that stuff that you just talked about didn't matter anymore.
Didn't matter
And here we
anymore.
are,
Yep.
right? So like, thank
Yep.
you, thank you, thank you.
Oh,
You've just really inspired me a lot to
great.
get back on the horse. Yeah.
I'm so pleased. And there is a movement. I work at the European Association of Urology in Innsbruck, Austria. I teach this workshop with a whole cohort of young urologists. It's the same. We are working. I think at this point, what we have to our advantage is the systems and the research are finally catching up with what we've all been screaming into the wind for those hundreds of years. It's like finally we are actually at a place where to deny these quantitative numbers is to actually be irresponsible. Like we are now at a level where we can't ignore this. And so it's the systems. They are trying to shift. And I also want to advocate for the students. They want this. They really need this stuff and they want it. They are saying, I don't want to be mean to my patient. I don't want to be rude. I'm not that person. We have a whole generation of kids who've been taught to talk about their feelings and they're doctors now. So we also have a really interesting internal, revolution happening as well, where the students are going, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of being ignored. I'm tired of not having a voice when I go in. So I do think that there are some things at play, which hopefully could lead to like a real shift. So we're not, 100 years from now, somebody isn't looking back at us going, oh, they tried to do that then. That was nice. That's my hope is 100 years from now. And somebody will actually go, that's where the dial really shifted. That would be my dream. But it is across the world. Like it's a movement and it's not just me. I'm part of a much bigger conversation and it's exciting. It doesn't feel like that sometimes, but I will say, I'm sorry to go over, but thank you.
I really don't want to stop, and I'm so sorry for doing that.
It's all good. We have to be, I know, I used to run these things and I know. Yes, and I'm just, before we all disappear, I am going to put my email in the chat. And I am going to put, our website is getting updated, so it's a little bit too boring at the moment. But this is the Theater of Medicine website. My work per se, I have not been publishing because I do workshops at conferences. I've only done a couple of publications. You can find my thesis online though, and it's called this. Hold on. There we go. So you can find that by me through the UNB. It's published through the University of New Brunswick. Yeah, Peggy, quickly, yeah.
It says A. Milligan, but I think it's not spelled right in your email. Is it Milliagn?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Kat.
Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure because I do want to reach out to
A.
you.
Milligan,
I love this.
sorry, that was me typing too fast. A. Milligan at shawfest.com.
Great, thank you.
And you can find me there. Oh, the other thing I will do, oh my God, can you bear with me for a hot second? I will have to, we had a front page, had an article in the Toronto Star that made the front page on October 7th. So you can look that up, which really does highlight, it does a great job of describing the workshop and what we did over the course of the weekend. So if you want to look it up, it's a quick Google, Toronto Star, Theater of Medicine, and you will see the article come up. But I really thank you for your time, and it was really nice to reconnect with all of you. This was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you again. And I just want to remind everybody that CNIC is socially connected. So you can check the website, www.canadiannetworkforimaginationandcreativity.com. Find us online. Yep, we need to shorten that maybe, but find us online for more information and links to register for the Idea Jams, bios, view our past Idea Jam sessions. So if you want to look for, or you weren't able to catch all of the information, you can check that out. So as we close for the evening, I just want to say thank you again, Alexis. I don't even know, like my mind is, I'm very excited. And like somebody said, the passion that you have is, hopefully going to keep the movement going.
Yeah.
So on behalf of
Great.
Scenic, I just want to thank you again. Thank everybody
My
for
pleasure.
sticking here 11 minutes. Have a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year,
Thank
and
you.
make sure to put January 15th at 7 p.m. will be our next Idea Jam. And I'm thinking, Alexis, we might have to have you back.
I'd be happily come back. Yeah, this was great. And then, again, love to hear more from all of you. So this was really great. Thanks very much. We'll see you later.
Thank you so much.
Bye.